What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my week 2 running back start sits. And I listened to your guys' feedback. I know some people really like, breaking down every matchup, the early in the week start sits. Other people like the rankings right away. I pretty much decided to combine both of those. So I'm still going to break down every single matchup, talk about every fantasy relevant running back, but then I'm also going to have like my initial ranking next to the players that are in my top 30. And later on in the week, I'll have like my expanded rankings, probably like top 40 running backs and wide receivers. If you guys enjoy the video, do me a huge favor, hit that like button and subscribe. Timestamps are going to be in the description for every matchup. And if you guys are new to my start sit videos, the start's going to be the players you really trust in your lineup, your RB1s, your RB2s. The fringe options, they're playable, but they're more like the flex options, RB3s, and then sits, guys that you would prefer to keep on your bench. But let's just dive right into the Thursday night matchup. We have the Commanders taking on the Packers, and there was a lot of intrigue with this Commanders backfield. You have Bill Krosky-Merritt coming out of nowhere, B-Rob obviously traded, and I feel like Bill Krosky-Merritt came in, had a solid day, only a 33% snap share, but he took 10 of the 20 carries from the running back position, turned those 10 carries into 82 rushing yards and a touchdown. He took 2 of the 5 short yardage snaps. I feel like if you're rostering Bill, you got pretty much everything you could have asked for out of him in week 1. Now, this is not a great matchup here against the Packers. They're underdogs. This is a great defense. I'm going to list him as a fringe option. I think he's more of like a back-end RB3 this week, but definitely could continue to expand on his role. And then for Austin Eckler, solid usage, 47% snap share, 54% raw participation, 6 carries, 3 targets in week 1. I do think this is going to be a better game script for him. Potentially a trailing game script. They're 3.5-point underdogs against the Packers. So I do prefer Eckler, but he's also going to be a fringe option, more of like a mid-tier RB3 play. Then for the Packers with Josh Jacobs, nothing crazy with his week 1 usage, pretty much what we were expecting. I have him as my RB9 this week, so definitely a very solid start. Then moving over to the Sunday slate, we have a divisional matchup between the Browns and the Ravens. Browns backfield, definitely interesting to monitor after week 1. We saw Dylan Sampson have really nice usage. He took 12 of the 21 running back carries. He took 8 of the 9 targets, and he had a really solid receiving day, 8 receptions for 64 yards. Now, it's possible that Quinshon Judkins returns as soon as this matchup here against the Ravens, but I still think Dylan Sampson's the better option, especially in this specific matchup where I think he has a real opportunity to be the receiving back on this team. The Browns are 11.5-point underdogs. I think there could be a decent amount of targets to the running back position, and I think Dylan Sampson is the guy who can kind of take advantage of that. So then sitting Quinshon Judkins and Jerome Ford. For the Ravens here, Derrick Henry, monster game. Obviously, you're firing him up. This is a great game script, likely going to be leading early and pretty much throughout the entire game. Derrick Henry is my running back 2 this week. In the next matchup, we have a game that I think has some shootout potential. The Jaguars taking on the Bengals. For the Jaguars, ETN looks like the clear running back 1. He took 16 of the 25 running back carries, 3 of the 4 targets. He was really productive with those opportunities, 143 rushing yards, 13 receiving yards. Tank Bigsby was traded to the Eagles, so he is now out of the picture. And as someone who was very in on Bashal Tutin heading into the season, I think Bashal Tutin is someone who definitely can expand his workload. We did see both Tutin and LaQuint Allen getting snaps in this game. It seemed like even if Tank didn't get traded, like he was clearly the odd man out of this backfield. So as of right now, only feel comfortable playing Travis Etienne, but definitely should keep your eye on Bashal Tutin. And he definitely has like an increased opportunity to break out, especially early on in the season. This week, I have Travis Etienne as my running back 18. And then for the Bengals, Chase Brown, workhorse usage, not super surprising. He is my running back 5 this week. He's obviously going to be a locked-in start in your lineup. Then we're going to have the Giants taking on the Cowboys. And Tyrone Tracy is an interesting player to talk about because from a production perspective, right, he kind of flopped in week 1. 24 rushing yards, 11 receiving yards, not a strong play in your lineup. But his usage was really strong, where he had a 74% snap share, 69% route participation. He took 10 of the 15 running back carries and then saw 3 of the 5 running back targets. So that is like starting running back usage. The problem is this offense is just really rough. I think we could see Cam Scatterbo start to improve his workload throughout the season. In this matchup against the Cowboys, I view Tyrone Tracy as more of like a high-end RB3 option. So he's going to be a fringe play for me, but as the running back 27. And then sitting Cam Scatabo, still think you should hold on to him. Could expand his role, but definitely not playable at this point in the season. Then for the Cowboys, Javonte Williams, someone who I was kind of sketched out by heading into the season. That might have been a mistake. Like, even if it was gross, even if he had struggled in back-to-back seasons, like, this is still someone who's lined up to be the running back one for the Cowboys, and his usage was great in week 1. 77% snap share and route participation. He took 15 of the 19 running back carries, 2 of the 3 targets, scored 2 touchdowns, over 20 PPR points. And then in this matchup against the Giants, the Cowboys have the 8th highest implied point total. So I do have Javonte as a start here. I think from a game script perspective, this is probably going to be a matchup they're leading in. Should be a decent amount of rushing volume. He is my RB20. And then sitting Miles Sanders and Jaden Blue. I will say Jaden Blue was a healthy scratch for this game, but Miles Sanders is just not it. He has no juice. Had that play where he got hawked down by Bond, and then he proceeded to fumble, potentially lose the game there. I think Jaden Blue is going to have an opportunity to at least be the running back 2 on this team. So if he got dropped because he was a healthy scratch, I do think he is worth a pickup. Moving over to the Bears taking on the Lions. For the Bears in this running back room, I feel like if you rostered DeAndre Swift, like, the usage was pretty much all you could ask for. He took all 17 running back carries. He was targeted 5 times. That is elite usage at the running back position. I think the overall issue, though, was just like this Bears offense did not look great. Started off strong, really kind of fell apart in the second half. But with that type of usage, you're going to be startable. He is my running back 19 in this matchup. And then sitting Kyle Monungai did look like the running back 2, but like certainly not playable at this point in the season. And then for the Lions, a rare, just like complete offensive clunker from them. Jahmyr Gibbs is still a high-end RB1. I mean, he was peppered with targets in the receiving game. Even if they are in like some more competitive trailing game scripts, I actually think that kind of skews towards Jahmyr Gibbs' skill set, where he could definitely be more active as a pass catcher. So he's my RB3 this week. And then I have David Montgomery as a fringe option. If this Lions offense does take a step back, that is going to be a real hit to David Montgomery, because first off, the touchdown upside is going to be lessened. And then also, like I mentioned, if they're in these trailing game scripts, that's the skill set that fits Jahmyr Gibbs and not David Montgomery. So I have him as my RB29 this week. There is some reason to potentially be concerned here with David Montgomery long-term if the Lions can't turn it around. Moving over to the Patriots taking on the Dolphins. Patriots running back room, it was interesting. Pretty solid split between Henderson and Ramondre. Ramondre saw 7 carries, 3 targets. Henderson saw 5 carries, 6 targets. I do think we're going to see Henderson expand on his role. He is just the better running back in this backfield, and at some point, he is really going to pull away here. I think the concerning part for Henderson, and somewhat puzzling from the Patriots, is that Ramondre took 6 of the 9 third down snaps, and then he took 8 of the 11 2-minute drill snaps. Just from like a skill set perspective, getting your best player out there, those should be going to Travion Henderson. I do think he starts to collect that role, as the season moves on here. So I have him as like a back-end RB2 this week. I do just believe in the player. 6 targets week 1 is encouraging. He is my running back 23. And then sitting Ramondre Stevenson. For the Dolphins here, I mean, this Dolphins team might just be a dumpster fire this season. Devon Achane was the guy who was still fairly productive. Decent day on the ground, caught a receiving touchdown, which really kind of saved his fantasy day. But I'm still going to believe in Devon Achane. He can catch passes out of the backfield. He was the clear-cut RB1. There was no like Ollie Gordon really eating into his opportunities. So I still have Achane as a top 10 running back this week. He's my running back 10. I like the player. I think the overall upside is going to be capped if this team is just terrible, especially offensively, but still an RB1 in my opinion. And then sitting Ollie Gordon, who was the running back 2, but like no meaningful impact in this game. Moving over to the 49ers taking on the Saints. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey, if he's healthy, he is going to be a locked-in start in your lineup. Didn't have the most efficient day, but I mean, the usage was dominant. Injuries to George Kittle. You still have Brandon Ayuk out. He is going to be the focal point of this offense. Also, Brock Purdy banged up. They are going to force feed CMC. He is my RB1 this week going up against the Saints. B-Rob was operating as the clear RB2, but just not enough usage to consider him playable. Then for the Saints, we have Alvin Kamara. Pretty strong usage, just as you'd expect. Not necessarily as involved as a pass catcher as you'd think, but that should certainly come. He's my running back 17 this week as a very strong start. Then we have the Bills taking on the Jets. The Bills are coming off a win in one of the best games of all time. James Cook had a really strong performance. He's never going to have like that full-blown workhorse usage, but on one of the best offenses in the NFL, I think he's always going to be in like this back-end RB1 range. He is my RB11. And then the Jets were like potentially the biggest surprise of the week. The offense looked fantastic. Justin Fields looked great. Breece Hall, there had been a lot of concerns about Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis kind of cutting into his workload. And there's still some minor concerns, like Braylon Allen did vulture a goal line touchdown. But when you watch these three running backs, like you can't come away thinking anything other than Breece Hall is just the clear best option. He looked like he was back to like his rookie pre-ACL form. It was a great performance. 19 carries, 107 rushing yards, 4 targets, 2 receptions for 38 yards. And then even though he did get that goal line touchdown kind of vultured from him, he still took 4 of the 6 goal line snaps. So I don't even think like him losing out on those opportunities is set in stone at this point. Breece Hall, very strong start. He is going to be my running back 15. And also a running back who's pretty game script proof, where if they're leading, he can be that guy who racks up a ton of volume on the ground. If they're trailing, like they likely will in this game, he can get very involved as a pass catcher and produce that way. Then 2 committee backfields. We have the Seahawks taking on the Steelers. And if you did draft Kenneth Walker, there was certainly some cause for concern because this was like a full-blown split here between Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Charbonnet actually outsnapped him 30-21. He ran 11 routes to Kenneth Walker's 9. We ended up seeing Charbonnet have 12 opportunities to Kenneth Walker's 13. I think the biggest concern here, it's not just that they split, the usage pretty much 50-50. It was that Zach Charbonnet was getting pretty much all of the valuable snaps, where he took all 3 of the goal line snaps, he took 5 of the 7 third downs, and then he took 9 of the 12 2-minute drill snaps. That is not great. As of right now, I don't think either of them are like slam dunk plays, just because this hasn't proven to be a very good offense, and this is pretty much like a 50-50 committee. As of right now, I have Zach Charbonnet as my RB25 and Kenneth Walker as my RB28. If you did draft Kenneth Walker, I don't think this usage is completely locked in. I think he could, potentially regain the RB1 spot, but it's certainly a pretty tough, pill to swallow to start off the season. And then for the Steelers, another backfield with some interesting usage. We saw Kenneth Gainwell come out of nowhere and lead this backfield in snaps and routes. We still saw Jaylen Warren lead in opportunities with 13. He was the more efficient back. He took all 3 of the goal line snaps. It's not ideal that you have Kenneth Walker coming in off the street and getting that type of usage. But I guess on the other side, you have Caleb Johnson, who was just a complete non-factor. So maybe that's good for Jaylen Warren. If you did draft Caleb Johnson, I'd still hold on to him, but you can't even consider playing him at this point. The dude only took 2 snaps, so like completely out of this offense at this point. Jaylen Warren, I have him as my RB26 against the Seahawks. Then we have a matchup between the Rams and the Titans. There's been a lot of talk this offseason about Blake Corum, Jarquez Hunter getting more involved, wanting to kind of, spread the workload out. And then they just go out and continue to force feed Kyren Williams. He's my running back 13 this week. Then for the Titans, Tony Pollard didn't have a great fantasy day, but he was the clear-cut workhorse. I think in better matchups moving forward, like Broncos week 1 is just tough. I think that usage is going to lead to better production moving forward. He's a back-end RB2 for me, my RB21. Then we have the Panthers taking on the Cardinals. Chuba Hubbard saw pretty solid usage. I think the only concern is that this Panthers offense just looked really rough. This was not the Bryce Young we saw towards the end of last year. This was like rookie year, like first half of last year Bryce Young, which is very concerning when it comes to like the overall upside for Chuba Hubbard, but still a solid start as like a back-end RB2. My running back 22, sitting his handcuff, Rico Dowdle. Then we have the Cardinals, and there'd been a lot of Trey Benson hype throughout the offseason. Coaches, even James Conner, had been talking about how he was going to get more involved, and he was. He had 8 carries, 1 target, but we still saw James Conner get his 16 opportunities, 12 carries, 4 targets. Conner still took 100% of the goal line snaps. This is a good matchup here for the Cardinals. They have the 3rd highest implied point total. They're 6.5 point favorites. I'm expecting a really solid James Conner performance. I have him as my RB12 in week 2. Then we have the Broncos traveling to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. For the Broncos, definitely one of the more interesting backfields to monitor after week 1. It was, up in the air how much we'd see of J.K. Dobbins, how much of a role would R.J. Harvey have early on in the season. The overall takeaway is that this is definitely J.K. Dobbins' backfield to start off the season. He took 16 of the 22 running back carries, 18 overall opportunities, saw 5 of the 7 short yardage snaps. RJ Harvey certainly had his impact. He only played 29% of the snaps, 33% route participation, but he saw 7 opportunities, had 70 rushing yards, ripped off a 50-yard run. So it's good to see that he's already making an impact, showcasing that big playability. I think the ideal situation here is that Tyler Beatty starts to kind of get phased out of this offense. He played 14 snaps, ran 11 routes, 6 targets. Like, that's receiving usage that you'd like to see. I mean, either go to J.K. Dobbins, but I think, more realistically kind of get shifted over to RJ Harvey. So, Beatty did play 50% of the third downs. He played 6 of the 9 2-minute drill snaps. Hopefully, as Harvey starts to get more comfortable, they trust him a little bit more, he can start to take over in some of those areas. But for this specific week, in week 2, I do prefer J.K. Dobbins. I have him as a start. He's right in like that tweener range between like back-end RB2, high-end RB3. I ended up settling with him as my running back 24 this week. And then for the Colts, kind of a weird Jonathan Taylor game. Obviously, the Colts offense as a whole just went nuclear, but you almost had like the weird downside for JT with Anthony Richardson that you ended up getting with Daniel Jones, where the concern with Richardson was like, all right, he's going to vulture near the goal line. The touchdown upside is going to be capped. With Daniel Jones, it's like you shouldn't have that issue, but Daniel Jones ends up scoring 2 rushing touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor does not get into the end zone. Still like him this week as a high-end RB2. He is going to be my running back 16. Then we have the Super Bowl rematch between the Eagles and the Chiefs. For the Eagles, Saquon, fine week 1, nothing crazy. This is a tough matchup here against the Chiefs. They allowed the fewest points per game to running backs last year. They really held Amarian Hampton in check, but you're still going to fire up Saquon Barkley. He is a start. He is my running back 6. Then we have this Chiefs backfield, and Isaiah Pacheco was pretty disappointing week 1. Like, heading into fantasy drafts, you could certainly see the upside, but you could also see where this kind of goes south, where he's just in this gross committee. And that's kind of what we saw in week 1, where he only had 5 carries, 3 targets. That was the exact same usage as Kareem Hunt, only turned that into, 28 scrimmage yards. He had a 51% snap share. I guess the positives are that he did take the 1 goal line snap. He saw 8 of the 12 2-minute drill snaps. They're 1.5-point underdogs in this matchup. They're actually bottom half in implied points, which is not something you see often with this Chiefs offense. So I have Pacheco listed as a fringe option, but it's way more as like a sketchy back-end running back 3 play. Obviously, you're hoping he can, build on his usage, but it was not a super encouraging week 1. And then going to be sitting Kareem Hunt and Brashard Smith. Then we're going to have the Falcons taking on the Vikings. For the Falcons, tough day on the ground for both Bijan and Algier. Fortunately, Bijan had a monster day as a pass catcher, which really kind of, saved his fantasy day. I have him as the running back 4. I'm really not concerned long term. And then sitting Tyler Algier, his handcuff. For the Vikings, this was a really solid split between Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. Like, this was not a good look for Aaron Jones, who's definitely drafted, to be the clear running back 1. Jordan Mason was still someone in the mix there as was going to be involved, but Aaron Jones, you're expecting him to be the clear-cut starter, and that wasn't really the case. Mason actually out-carried Aaron Jones 15-8 in a trailing game script. Like, if the Vikings are trailing, you would expect that to favor Aaron Jones with his receiving upside, but we did see that receiving production come through. I think was tied for the lead in receiving yards, 3 receptions, 44 yards, and a touchdown through the air. So I still slightly prefer Aaron Jones, but these guys are pretty close together. I have them both as fringe options. I believe they're 4.5-point favorites in this game, so game script-wise, probably slightly leans toward Jordan Mason, but I'm going to go with Aaron Jones as my RB30. He just makes the cut in the top 30 week 1 rankings or week 2 rankings. Then we're going to have the Buccaneers taking on the Texans. Bucky Irving kind of had a rough fantasy day, pretty inefficient on the ground, but the usage was fantastic. He is the clear-cut running back 1. There's really no concerns for me there. So running back 7, great mid-tier RB1 option this week. And then going to be sitting Rachaad White. For the Texans, this was definitely a backfield I was monitoring. I thought maybe we could get some Dameon Pierce. Maybe Woody Marks, kind of makes his impact in this backfield. Didn't really happen. Nick Chubb looks like the clear running back 1. He took 13 of the 21 carries. Still was only like a 51% snap share, 26% route participation. He did see all 3 of the short yardage snaps, so if they did, get near the goal line, you would expect him to get those opportunities. it's just a pretty rough backfield. The offensive line is bad. Nick Chubb doesn't catch passes. They are 2.5-point favorites in this matchup, so maybe they can get an early lead and you are kind of leaning on Nick Chubb. But this Buccaneers defense did just hold Bijan and Algier to 48 rushing yards on 22 attempts. So it's tough to get excited about Nick Chubb. I think you're hoping for like 15-ish carries and you're praying he gets into the end zone. So he's a fringe option for me, more as like a back-end RB3. And then obviously you are sitting Dameon Pierce, Woody Marks, and Gudare Ongumbawale. And then I think this is the final game of the week here. I think we have 2 Monday night games. We have the Chargers taking on the Raiders. For the Chargers, Amarion Hampton's usage was elite, 80% snap share, 61% route participation. He took 15 of the 16 running back carries and then 17 of the 19 overall running back opportunities. So obviously he didn't produce, but it was a tough matchup against the Chiefs. I feel very solid about him heading into this matchup. He's a high-end RB2 for me as the running back 14. Sitting Najee Harris could have a little bit of a larger role in week 2, but certainly not someone you should be consider playing. And then the final running back we have in this video, Ashton Genty, didn't come through with a great fantasy day, but the usage was fantastic. Really like zero concerns for me here with Genty. He is my running back 8 in week 2. So that's going to wrap it up for like my start sits, my early rankings. If you guys enjoyed the video, do me a huge favor, hit that like button and subscribe. Check out the wide receiver video. That'll also be coming out today. But thank you all for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.